Welcome, AfterBuzzers. You are watching the After Show for When They See Us, Part 2. Stay tuned for more.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome, AfterBuzzers. We are back, Part 2, When They See Us. Oh, we got so much to cover, so many great topics. Of course, we're going to get our news, our predictions, our top 3, and our positive moments. Again, I'm your host, Shaka Smith, joined by my lovely co-hosts, AJ, Alexis, and Kittie. And man, we got a lot to talk about. Again, let me just start off with self-care, because this is heavy, it's emotional, it's deep. So great to have it out there, but we also got to make sure we're emotionally taking care of ourselves, because this is some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
What were your overall takeaways for this episode?
My takeaways were, first off, it was very emotional.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, they didn't have any evidence. And you can clearly see that they were lying, and they still were found guilty. They still found them guilty.
Yeah, my overall take on this whole thing is, how did that happen?
Yeah.
How could justice possibly be served if this is the outcome? I mean, I just am curious about the jurors and their own peace of mind. How do you sleep at night knowing, I mean, all the evidence that we've seen speaks volumes to their innocence, and I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah.
It's disturbing.
I think the biggest thing for me is this episode and this show just feels like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
I just, in this episode alone, felt like, wow, they could possibly beat this case. Like, maybe they're switching it up for this episode because, of course, we know what happened. But I really felt like they had it in the bag just to be dropped on that roller coaster and feel like the whole world had just crashed down. So definitely was just a huge bottle of different emotions during this episode.
Yeah, I agree with you on the roller coaster. And then, you know, knowing the outcome, you would think the case didn't go their way, but it actually looked like it was going their way.
Yeah. For a minute there, because they kept presenting evidence
Yes.
that spoke volumes to what the prosecution was not saying, or what they were alluding to, or whatever the case may be. It was very, and you know, music plays such a huge role, right?
Yeah.
So when they play the ominous music, you know it's not looking good. But then they kept playing lighthearted music, the hopeful music, like you're grasping to straws. We obviously, as you said, we already know what happened, but I mean, to watch it, you get riveted, and you just keep hoping and praying that maybe, just maybe, something changed and something was different.
It was a frustrating episode for me, the same way, where I felt moments of hope, but I kind of was like, wait, I know what actually happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was tough. But we had a whole new cast of characters I thought that were interesting that were introduced to us. We have 5 new lawyers. We got Bobby Burns, we got Mickey Joseph, Colin Moore, Peter Rivera, and Howard Diller, and these are the different lawyers for the different defendants. And what I thought was interesting with the different strategies we saw, and we saw Mickey Joseph really come in there. What do you guys think about the different attorneys, and particularly Mickey Joseph? I'll go ahead and ask you, Lexi. What do you think about Mickey Joseph? And he really seemed to get it. He was the attorney that seemed to really get it.
That was Antron's lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one, and I remember thinking through the episode, he needs to just represent everybody.
Right.
Because he seemed like he had the best handle on it, really understood it. And, I mean, he knew the prosecutor, and, you know, he was able to get that deal for them. So it seemed like he should have been the one to handle anything. So it's interesting to see how everybody could just decided to go with their own person.
Yeah, I definitely think he had a handle on things. I was thinking the very same thing. I wish he could just speak for everybody, because obviously some of them are more prepared than others. And I think it speaks volumes to what they were capable of, they being the parents.
Yeah.
The families are able to afford this guy. He's a divorce lawyer. Obviously, this is not his cup of tea or his foray.
He wasn't the divorce lawyer.
No. I'm not talking about the one. Wait, what's his name?
Well, Mickey Joseph.
Right, I wasn't talking about Mickey Joseph. I'm
Bobby
talking
Burns.
about,
Yeah, he was
Bobby
Blair
Burns.
Underwood.
Okay, so
yeah.
Blair Underwood being the divorce lawyer, and then the other guy obviously being a politician and having an ulterior motive for doing this in the first place. So they are starting to kind of come around and show themselves to be a little competent, but they definitely, it spoke volumes to me about what we're able to afford, what we can do, you know, because obviously if they could have afforded the best lawyers out there, they would have gotten them. So these are probably favors that they're calling in, or having some type of rapport with these people, and it breaks my heart because they're not being represented, or they weren't being represented in the best light. They weren't given that opportunity to show and shine.
Yeah, definitely agree. They were definitely put at a disadvantage from the get-go. You know, like you said, I think Mickey Joseph, he was probably the only lawyer that actually knew what he was talking about and knew his craft. The other ones, they were probably successful in their crafts, but as far as this type of topic and this trial, he was definitely only the one that was knowledgeable, and I agree he should have probably represented all of the boys if he could.
If he could have.
And one thing I'll say is, you know, there was that moment where we see Mickey Joseph discover that there was a sock with semen and they didn't know.
Ooh, I love that pivotal moment.
And that's a huge thing because you're supposed to turn over that evidence to the other side.
Exactly.
And they didn't do that.
Exactly.
And now if you actually had the money, you could really go after the prosecution and figure out what it is they're hiding, what it is they've done also that's wrong.
Exactly.
But you don't have the money. You can't do it.
Right.
And that's what's so tough. What I loved about Bobby Burns now, Blair Underwood's character, is he really painted a picture. Like, he was a divorce lawyer they thought wasn't so great, but when he talked, he painted the picture.
Yeah.
Which kind of led to a little bit of the public outcry that we saw.
Exactly.
Because he was almost painting the picture that people were feeling and seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he made it very visual, and I think that's where people most people learn that way. Most people absorb things that way. If you can see it and you can actually materialize it to yourself, make it tangible, then it becomes real.
Yeah, exactly.
He did a great job of, you're right, painting that picture and letting people see what it actually should look like.
Yeah, and this was the first time we saw the public really get involved in the
Right.
because it really felt very one-sided the first episode with the police and just everyone involved in the case. What did you guys think about the public outcry, especially AJ? What did you think about how the public kind of came to the defense and how they were part of this whole narrative?
Well, I really do appreciate the public. I feel like whenever there's times of injustice, I feel like the Black community comes together and we protest and we stick up and we voice our opinions. But sometimes it seems like that's just as much as we can do, because as you can see, even with evidence or they're lying, it's just so much that you can do. So it really hurt because just the feeling of, we know that we're being done wrong to, but we can't really do anything for it.
Yeah,
that is just heartbreaking.
It really is, because it puts us in such a space that we can't achieve anything. We can't prosper.
Yeah. How do we get ahead?
Yeah,
How?
and we know that these things play themselves out publicly, and of course we had that whole specter of Donald Trump in the public, wanting to bring back the death penalty for these
news and gossip.
Wanting to bring back the death penalty for these children. And so when we talk about that sort of public outcry in that moment where they asked the mother whether or not about this thing, and it was the first time she'd heard about it.
Right.
Yeah. What did you think about that, Kittie?
I thought it was poignant. I thought it was a real pivotal moment, and how I love, again, the acting. Big ups to all these actors. They're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, they really stepped up to the plate and carried out her vision, Ava's vision. So I thought it was super deep that we had that kind of pregnant pause there, where the realization, you could see his wheels turning, like, wait a minute, sock. I don't remember hearing about a sock, and it all came to light. And the fact that she's still like indignant and has the nerve to try to, I don't know, make up for or defend her position when she knows she's dead wrong. It's so difficult to watch. Everything is so cringeworthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this woman has no cut cards. She is going in for the jugular. And we were initially, remember our last show, we were like, she's a little on the fence and maybe she'll come around. I knew that she feels badly. You can tell that this isn't really. So as much mess as she talks to Felicity Huffman, whoever, I don't know her. Sorry, but as much mess as she talks to her in terms of doing the right thing and being transparent, when it comes to talking to the or to the defendant, the lawyers of the defendant, she is not mincing her words at all.
But you know what? I think the detective really got in her head by saying, this is your moment, this is your time to be seen as this person who's defending this innocent woman who was defenseless and was a victim. And I think that's why they had her bring out the woman who was attacked, because she wanted her to really keep in mind, okay, you may feel this certain way about these boys and that they're innocent, but look what happened to this woman. And you have to do everything you can to make sure that she's vindicated, no matter if it is locking up five innocent men. So maybe if she didn't have that in her head or in her ear, she wouldn't have gone through with it.
And that's what struck me, is the prosecutor let her, she almost didn't let up on that feeling that she didn't believe these boys did it. Like, she never kind of came full scope, like, let's go for it, but she just found herself going for it regardless. And I think there was that moment where one of them said, it's no longer justice, it's politics. And I think that's what we see here. What do you feel about that notion that it's no longer justice, it's politics?
That happens a lot in these type of cases, where it's like we can't disappoint the public or certain Americans out in the public, because let's say the boys did get off. Then it would be like, oh my gosh, this white woman has gotten raped and we can't find her killer. Injustice to this white woman. These black boys, y'all let them off. So like you said, it's politics. And thinking back in 1989, it is politics, because it's a lot of similar cases like that, where it's injustice done to Black Americans at the cause of a white American,
right?
But they don't really care about who really did, as long as white America gets their justice.
Exactly. And they just like you pointed out earlier, if the tables were turned and these were white kids, and the lady was Black, or if these were white kids, and it doesn't even matter. In general, they would have seen a whole different situation unfolded.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, at the same time, we did actually find out a little bit more. I think it was Patricia Miley. Trisha Miley was the name of the victim, and we got a little bit more victim focus in this episode. And we're coming at it because we already know what happens. But if you put yourself there, and there's this sort of, it seems like there was an issue with a lot of high amount of rapes in the time. Do you wonder if anything could have been different almost about the way they were approaching this, when they're saying we have to find someone quickly, we have to move quickly, and we think it's them? Is there a part that a moment on the road they could have paused before they got to trial?
Could they have paused?
That was reasonable at the time, because I really found that Fairstein really brought up this whole thing. She said, "Wait a minute, we have a victim here who's, it's honestly brutal,
right?
And I think as we're watching it, we forget a little bit about the fact that there is someone who's seeking justice for a legitimate victim. And I wonder, could they have done it differently if that's the way you're viewing this?
No,
I think
so I was going to say this. So if you guys remember in this episode, towards the end, when she said, okay, maybe they didn't do it. It could have been somebody else, but they are still a part of it because they watched it. They didn't help her. So it's like, even though they know that they didn't rape them, they still wanted to get the boys for
anything.
Watching anything contributing to it.
And at this point, her name is on the line. You know what I mean? She was already going after it with having some type of, she's being, what am I trying to say? She's motivated by her ascent into, in the field she's in. So there's no way she's backing down now.
Yeah, I think that's, sorry to cut you off.
No,
I think
fine.
that's really what it is as far as it goes to that scene, because you're in it now, the trial's already happening, you just got to continue on with what you're doing. But in the beginning, before they even got to this, I think if they weren't lazy about it and actually took the time to actually find more suspects, look into what she did earlier that day, look more into what happened.
That sock.
Yeah, look more into that, and
with
actually
the
took the time
DNA
to be detectives instead of taking the easy way out and saying, oh, these Black boys were in the park at the same time, they must be it. Then it would have been a whole different story.
And what about that sock? Like, whose sperm is it? Can we find that out?
None of them.
But whose is it? Why not go after whomever it is?
So quick poll. Who at this stage believes Fairstein still actually believes they did it? Maybe she doesn't believe she got the evidence to prove it, but is Fairstein, the detective, does she believe that they actually did it?
I don't think she ever believed they did.
I was about to say, I don't think she ever believed it.
I think she's just going with the flow.
She has to at this point.
Now she really has to.
Because she's already done
the easy way out.
I kind of think Fairstein believes they did it somehow.
You do?
Really?
Because she's always saying, well, what, you think there was a brutal beating of these two people and then a brutal rape and they had nothing to do with each other? And she seems to legitimately believe that because that they might have been violent in some other way. Even I don't believe that's true, but even if you believe that, she also believes that because of that, they definitely committed this rape.
My overall feeling about this whole situation, and we keep talking about the kids because they are the victims here, is, and we tend to, I'm glad that they were able to bring the victim into this and humanize her in this episode, but it really is a huge scary dichotomy because everybody's there's no winner
there's
here.
A victim. Yeah,
everybody's a victim. Everybody, but obviously looking at it through these eyes are going to have a certain slant. It's like with anything else, you know what I mean? We dig our heels in because we believe that it's true. So listening to somebody else come to us and say, maybe shift your paradigm, maybe look at this differently, maybe, kind of search out what the truth is as opposed to just blindly believing. Everybody is they've already chosen sides, but everybody's losing. There's no win here. Even if it's just
except for the prosecutor.
And we got to dig into it. We touched on it a little bit. We got to dig into some more of the trial, but we do have a live read by our Lexi. Yes.
Okay, guys. So before we go on with this heavy topic, we just want to give a huge thank you for tuning in every week and making us the ESPN of TV Talk. We love what we do. We love watching our shows and talking about them with you, but we can't continue to do it without your help. So if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please make sure to give us a 5-star rating. And no matter what, please continue to watch and support because we can't do it without you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we love the comments, the 5 stars, even the constructive criticism. criticism.
Yes.
Constructive
We're here
criticism.
for it.
Yeah, we are. Well, yeah, let's get back into it. The trial. The opening statement. What did you think, AJ, of that? The opening statement and the way they kind of the dichotomy of the opening statement between the prosecutor and a couple of the defendant's attorneys.
Okay, the opening statement, which was
When the prosecutor was laying out her scene of the case, the evidence. She was laying out the evidence, and then Mickey Joseph laid out his evidence.
Right.
In the beginning of the trial.
Yeah. So, well, first off, I just want to say this about the prosecution, that they were really playing dirty by bringing the victim out there. Because I watched a lot of court shows, and there was no reason for the victim to come out there because she didn't remember anything.
Exactly.
She didn't remember nothing. She had absolutely no point. They really wanted her to come out there
Hobbled
to
and
hobble and show how,
exactly.
It was
visual.
all
Once again, it's right. It's all visual, right?
Yeah.
So they bring her out in an attempt to get sympathy from the people.
But good strategy if you think they did it, though, right? If you actually think they did it, it's like a...
Yeah, but they didn't.
They
But they did.
Yeah, they did not.
And because at that point, they were not losing, but I think people were starting to believe, okay, maybe they didn't do it because it was right after the sock. So it's like, okay, I got to get this sympathy back, and I got to start making us look like the victims again so that they can not
rule in our favor.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, can we talk about the plea deal real quick that was on the
this
table?
is part of the trial, yeah.
So listen, it was very interesting to me that they was offered a plea deal and they refused it. Because oftentimes you force them to take it and you're like, okay, we'll just take the plea deal. But the fact that these boys stood up for what they believed in, because they knew they didn't do it.
Exactly.
And, it just goes to show what we teach our youth. We teach them to stand up for yourself, to believe in yourself, don't lie.
But it was
Don't
too
lie.
little too late, because that should have been the first.
So that was I was just about to ask, do you think if they would have offered that plea deal after the guy's father was on the stand, after it kind of looked like it went downhill, do you still believe that they wouldn't have taken the plea deal? Because I think they would have taken it. I think by the time that they offered it, they were on such a high because they thought that they were winning it because of the sock thing and because they hadn't seen the tapes yet, and they felt like they really had a chance.
I don't think they would have backed down. I think they would have stood their ground just the same way, because the conviction, you can see it in their faces. They're looking around like, how can you even present us with this bullshit? We're not doing that.
I think they wouldn't have backed down because you have the evidence. The DNA is the magic thing. Oh, wait, there's a sock and it matches
Nobody's.
So that to me is like, when I saw that part of the case, I really thought, oh, maybe there was a mistrial. Because there's no way they could have found him guilty at this trial. It just boggled my mind. So I think they would have taken it. I would have loved to hear, though, the details of the plea deal.
What exactly
Was it
the plea
a year or
was.
was it like 10 years?
Yeah.
That might have made a difference.
Would have been
But even after, when they showed the tapes and Korey started yelling and everybody was crying, you still think they still would have taken the plea deal?
Well, because you still have the DNA evidence, So once your attorney goes in there and says no physical evidence,
I just think their integrity level was. I mean, for them to be such young people, I think that their integrity speaks volumes. They stood their ground because they knew that they didn't do it. And why would I say yes to being put in jail? Now I've had time to think about it. I've been in jail 6 months.
At least 6
I know
months,
what this is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know what jail looks like, and I don't want no parts. And I know I don't deserve to be here, so I'm going to fight it tooth and nail.
And, at this particular time, it's like they already have gotten in trouble for lying or not being honest. So at this point it's like, no, we did not do it, I'm standing my ground. So I think they probably would have kept, because they would have thought, oh, right is right. I think that's the whole thing they was going with. Right is right. They're going to believe us. They have no evidence, no DNA.
Because at this point, the compromising only got them to jail.
Exactly. So they're like, why would I agree to anything else? Exactly.
That's like Korey was like, I'm not reading that. I'm not doing nothing no more for y'all.
And we do have to talk about that. So Korey, that really did seem to break the case, in terms of really hurting them. What did you guys think about Korey going? First of all, should they have even put Korey up on the stand to begin with? And what did you guys think about how that whole interaction took place?
When he first started talking, being that I was an educator for about 8 years, I can already tell that something wasn't all the way right with him. And you can tell in his speech. And it just reminded me, sorry to go back, with the Trayvon Martin case and the friend that he had that put her on stand. She could barely make a complete sentence. I'm just like, they do this on purpose.
Of course.
They do it on purpose. They pick out who they want. Like, they knew that boy hadn't been in school all month. They knew
just
that
read
already.
the thing. Just read it. And
they
she just kept
it.
repeating, read it. I just told you I can't read.
To embarrass him.
Exactly.
And
now
for
you're
him
humiliating
to make him look
get angry and show that he can act out of anger. Like, all of this was just tactics for them.
Of
course.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And then, plus they had them in Rikers and had everybody else in juvie.
Right.
That's messed up.
And
Well, 'cause
you
he
would
was
think,
16.
yeah.
What about the dad? That was horrific that they put him up there as well. And I thought that was amazingly mature and just very, once again, poignant for the son to basically check his dad. He became the adult in that bathroom scene.
And that made, for me, when I saw the son kind of check his dad, that made me go, wait a minute, they've been in prison, they've been in jail.
He's seen the worst of it.
They've grown up real quickly in this amount of time.
Exactly, and he
you
was
see
definitely the more mature of the two.
And at
like,
the same
who says
time-
that? His father didn't even have a viable excuse.
Yeah. What struck me was the words he said without the bass in his voice.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's still a child, but he's grown up. You know?
Quite a bit, because he's had to. He doesn't have a choice.
Sorry. I wonder, going back to that talk they had in the bathroom before they went on the stand, he had mentioned saying that his father was stepping in to be the superhero. So I wonder if it was the dad's idea for him to go on the stand versus the lawyer's idea, because I remember watching it thinking, why is he even up there? So is it something where his father was like, put me up there, I think it will help? Or if the lawyer was like, we need to put you up there?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I would,
a good question.
I would have to think it was the lawyer. At that point, that father was so withdrawn. He
Yeah.
felt so
He wasn't
guilty
even
and
at
so
home.
ashamed. He wasn't trying to be anywhere
As
around
he
it.
should have.
But as he should have. But there was I don't know if he could have done any better in that moment for his son. He did
Not
the
in
best
that
that he could
moment,
have
but
done,
up
yeah.
until
He
then,
could
he
have
could have
if
made
he
a lot of different choices.
Stayed in the audience.
No.
But not. I mean, for me, it seems like sometimes when you live a certain way and you've been exposed to certain things, there are certain moments that unless you have an aha moment, you can't act any differently in that moment.
Yeah.
So for his history and his life, that was the right thing. I'm going to tell you to confess right now so we can go home. And in that moment, he could have done nothing else. That was the best he
It's
knew.
like really, in those type of neighborhoods, it's like, you're right, you're still wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong,
And
you're wrong. Like, you're just never right.
Yeah.
And up there on the stand, she made the point that we just made, right, in the last show, where we said, you know what the truth is. You know the reality of the situation. The police are not about to let you go after you have admitted to being a part of this heinous crime, but you say it anyway because that's what they tell you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't logic that prevailed. It was total emotion, throwing
Yeah.
chairs. And why would you admit that you threw a
But-
chair?
well, 'cause
Like, he's not thinking, once again, he doesn't have his thinking cap on. He's ruling with emotion. And it's spiraling out of control, and it's to the detriment of his kid.
And I'd say this. There's that element of course, but it's again the money, because what you would have done, because you want the father up there because he's the one that told the kid to lie, so you want to get that information out. But with the money, you would have prepped this guy. You would have had a fake jury, and you would have and when he did that, you would say, okay, no, you can't do that.
Right,
This is
don't
how you
say
act.
this, say
That
that.
is a
Witness
very
prep.
good point, because I would think if the lawyer wanted him to go up there, like you said, he would have prepped him.
No. I'm sure the lawyer wanted him to go up there. I'm saying the prep, that's money. To get a 12
Well, I mean, he's
random
his
people.
lawyer. It's not like he's like, oh, I'm your lawyer, but you have to pay me more if you want me to prep me. If you want me to prep you, I don't
Yeah,
think that's
yes,
how
they
it
do.
works.
That
To
is
the
most
amount of
certainly
energy
how-
they put into the case, if they're not getting, they're
I
not
don't
gonna
think
put
that's
that.
true.
Yes, it is.
No.
They only do what
Like
they're
the
paid.
lawyer would be like, oh, I'm gonna represent you, but I'm not gonna prep you because you're not paying me enough.
No.
They don't even say it that. They
don't
just don't
say-
say
they don't do
anything.
it.
They just don't
Alexis.
do it.
Wait,
Girl,
It
no.
is. That's how it works.
wait,
Lex.
no.
Lex, that's just really how it works.
but-
Money talks.
Wait, but no, I'll say it this way: it's not that the lawyer won't do it. The lawyer is not going to pay out of his pocket to get 12 people to come in. You have to pay random people to sit there for the day, to have lunch, and you do a trial, and you actually make that person go through what would have been if they're on the stand. So when they get to the stand, they're already ready.
What I
And
mean
so-
is, he should have sat down with him and the dad and just did it with him. is
Maybe
what
he
I
did,
mean.
but maybe
That's
it
what I
wasn't
meant
at
by
length.
prep.
Oh yeah, maybe he did it in take, or maybe he had 10 other cases.
Or
that
maybe
we-
he did it minimally, but not
Yeah.
like a full length. Listen, we're going to be
Yeah.
here for the next 2 hours. I'm going to tell you how the grill is going to go down.
Because these lawyers are, I'm sure, all of other cases, and you
Yeah,
know.
but honestly, I believe this was a huge case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they said, the Supreme Court was on this
Yeah.
case. I truly don't believe you're a lawyer on this humongous national case and you don't do absolutely everything in your
No,
power
you do,
to
but-
make sure that everything is prepared. Money or not. I mean, he had to have had the money to represent
No,
them.
but then there's the or not.
Lexi.
There's the or not. Right? If you have $1 million to pay for a defense team versus $10,000,
It's going to be, but that's what the money is for. That's why people get off.
We can
with-
agree to disagree.
But that's not, it's not an opinion. It's a fact.
Think about it. If I'm your lawyer And I know, okay, I'm your lawyer and your lawyer. You're paying me $10,000. You're paying me $50,000. I'm putting way more energy and time as a person that's paying me more. You're only not paying me that much, so I'm not going out my way too much.
That's true, but not in a case where you're representing this on
this
a
is
grand national scale.
No, I agree with you. If you're doing it on a grand scale, you're trying to get as many resources as possible.
Yeah.
But your resources may be limited versus someone who's got money to get.
Like this is something that Donald Trump put his hat in, said
Donald
there needs
Trump
to be a
paid $85 grand.
85 grand.
But the parents don't have $85 grand for
this is an underserved, underrepresented. These are different neighborhoods, girl. They ain't got it.
They don't. But we can agree to disagree.
But what I will say, there have been several studies that show that the amount of money spent on defense leads to certain outcomes, and it's correlated to how much.
I agree.
So if you have a limited amount of money, you're certainly not going to be able to get
one, we don't know if they have the limited amount of money because
yes, they do.
No, because they have their church.
A black church.
Do y'all really think that there was this huge national case about 5 black boys and people like the NAACP didn't step in? You had all
they
this.
They did it. It's 1989.
Nobody knows for sure.
Well, we can just look that up. We can't find out for sure.
Yeah. So funds were limited, but you know.
No, but see, I think we're just arguing like fact as opposed to feeling. You know what I mean? I understand where you're coming from, and I feel like that should have been the case as well. But the facts of the matter are, just as he said, money correlates to success 9 times out of 10. So I think that maybe they had some. We don't know. Okay, I won't even try to shine a light on something that I'm not knowledgeable about. But I will say that I do know for sure that if the more money you have, like with anything else, the easier it is.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing on that.
Yeah. So
we can agree to disagree on everything else.
Okay. So let's getting back to the trial.
Yeah.
We also had some really troubling instances with Santana's lawyer, Raymond Santana's lawyer, Mr. Rivera. His representation was very politically motivated.
Oh, totally.
What did you think, AJ, of his representation of Raymond?
Well, I just feel like his representation, I feel like all the boys could have been represented a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it at that because I just feel like
I mean, he was Peter Rivera.
I like that Peter Rivera had a kind of aha moment, though, because he's been disappointing us up until this point. So he was a joke for the most part. He doesn't ask any questions. I mean, he just states facts and goes, no more questions, and then walks away. I'm like, what? That's what is that? Yeah. So the fact that he had an aha moment before he left, let me ask you one more thing. And it was so important that particular question in order for it to, shed some light on the boys' defense, that I thought that was dope. Finally, he said something of substance. But yeah, he's pretty pathetic overall.
Yeah, and we did have that moment during the trial, or when they had that sort of meeting with all of them, and you hear the different voices.
I thought that was dope.
And the different people involved. And you had one guy that wanted to take the plea deal right away. Mm-hmm. And of course, he didn't seem to really want to represent the group. He wanted to kind of be in there quickly. What do you guys think about how people tried to take advantage of these boys in the situation?
How so?
With these attorneys that only wanted to get the clout from the case rather than actually helping these boys. Well,
that's really up to the parents who they chose, and I think that it speaks great volumes to, again, their socioeconomic places. Like they're just not at a place where they can afford to necessarily get better lawyers. I think they got what they were able to get. You know what I mean? And they just did what they're able to do.
I don't think they were taking advantage. I think they saw an opportunity, yes, but I think it probably could have helped the boys more, because if you are on a case of this grand scale, you want to win because you want to look good. It's not taking advantage. It helps all of us because they get to win and then you get to look good. Yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily taking advantage. It's just seeing an opportunity to help that could also help you. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's motivated by more than just a desire to help these kids out. And then, how about the other one though that sat there and was just like, we should take the plea deal? The short guy, but that wasn't Rivera. He's the lawyer of the.
Oh, when he said that we shouldn't use the race card or something.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. I knew there was something else. I should have written it down exactly when he was just like, come on, let's leave race out of it. Like, what part of the game is that? Do you not? But that speaks volumes to that white entitlement that we experience right now today. They have no clue. So it's not even like they are blatant racists. They just don't know. And they don't care, because if they did, they would take the time to learn and be a part of the actual solution. In their minds, it has nothing to do with race.
Yeah, and sometimes they do care, but again, it's like you cannot appreciate something until you've lived it. So you can care, but then you can kind of walk away from it.
But if you care
if you're
enough,
black, you can't walk away from being black.
But think about anything that means something to you. If you care about the indigenous gorillas in the wild forest, you're going to take it upon yourself to go visit these sites that support that. You're going to donate money to it. You're going to make that an issue. So I don't believe they care, because it kind of goes back to what I was saying in the last show. I love the guy I like the guy that I was talking to earlier today that spoke about my braids, but the fact that he didn't know because he doesn't want to know. I'm supposed to be his plug. You know what I mean?
But do we all like donate to a cause, but then you kind of don't think about the cause, but you cared about it, you donate some money, but you don't think about it every day. You don't
I'm not
live
giving
with
nobody money that I'm not involved with.
At the end of the day, I just feel like unless it directly affects you, most people don't really care about it. Unless it directly affects you, like, you know,
why should I vote? That doesn't mean it.
Or
they don't get it.
I'll just go just to try to make the connection. Like, let's say with the LGBT community, I could feel sorry, like, oh, that's so terrible, you know, blah, blah, blah. That y'all have to go through that. You know, I can say all of that, but then it's like, you know, but maybe I could probably care 80% instead of 100%. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can feel compassion, but for people to actually be proactive and actually go out there, that's like two totally different cares.
Because what I thought, and I think sometimes you can feel that you're 100% in, and then I realize, that's what it's really
like. Are you willing to go out there and do the work for, you know, to fight for for people's rights?
Because they asked Joshua Jackson this question about playing the attorney, Mickey Joseph, and he said one of the things that he kind of learned was that you can't walk away from being black. Like so it took him a while to get into the mindset of we have to sit in this. They have to sit in this every day, and even if things are going well, it's still a consideration in the back of your mind. Like it's always something. And so that for him was his aha moment. And so I wonder if people, hopefully we'll see other people having that aha moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I rewind a little bit back and talk about Tron's father and him disappearing and then reappearing? So, you know, watching that scene, you know, once again, it took it back to slavery where they emasculated him, you know, and had him feeling like he wasn't man enough for his family. So what does he do? He go disappear because now he's feeling all this guilt, shame, this hurt, disappointment. And so, like, that just leads into the breakdown of the black family, where the man, where's the man at? And where is he at? And he's gone just because of the situation that happened to him and how it affected his family.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's a moment where he should be there for the family, but because he was affected whatever many years before, so he
don't even know how to be because he was in the system as well. So it's like, dang, the same thing is happening to my son.
That happened to me.
Systemic racism, institutionalized failures, all of that.
And quite frankly, it almost feels if we didn't have social media and these different ways to share with each other and talk to each other about it, we would still be and not even know that each other were. And
it would be cyclical because one begets the other, and begets the other, begets the other. Yeah.
Man, well, there were so many moments, of course, but let's get into our top 3 moments of this episode. Okay. I think you got us, Kittie.
Well, actually, what I did was put together 3 similar cases. So cases that rang true for me that kind of spoke to just injustices, people being let out of jail because they didn't do what they said they did, or because they made it harder.
Top 3 real
life cases, exactly. So Emmett Till, I went all the way back to Emmett Till because that's the one that we, as black people, we are made aware of it when we're children. Most of our families teach us that this is what happened and this can happen to you. Maybe not in the same way, but Emmett Till is a huge example of how they're just being railroaded. He whistled at a woman, and before you know it, he's beaten and killed. And it's just a sad situation. It was obviously a lynching that wasn't justified. Number 2 is Kalief Browder. I watched that. I mean, talk about heavy. That was beyond anything. I mean, I'm a mother of a son, of a black boy. So that hit home. It was horrible. But for those of you that don't know, Jay-Z spearheaded this project, and Kalief Browder was locked up in Rikers Island along with grown men when he was a child. He was definitely under 18, being accused of having stolen somebody's backpack. It was never recovered. The person never came to test. They actually fled and went back to Mexico, and it was a whole thing. But it was his documentary that was done was so well done. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out with a happy ending. He was released from jail eventually, but they had already done such a number on him, PTSD and all kinds of depression, and already had taken hold. So he took his own life.
Yeah, I think he may have even been in solitary for a while.
For a while? No, he was in jail 100 days. 90 of those days was in solitary. Yeah, so he took his own life, unfortunately, and that just turned into, a huge... It was awesome of Jay-Z to put it together, but obviously a sad point. And then the third one was recently Alice Marie Johnson. Obviously, we know about her through Kim Kardashian and her working with the justice system and getting people vindicated for non-offensive crimes. She went to jail, I think it was 25 years ago. She was a first-time offense, cocaine possession, non-violent, nothing to do with hurting anyone. So just to bring it back full circle, the fact that people, thank goodness, are getting involved in exonerating people and getting them freed when, in fact, there's nothing to support them being there in the first place.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That was some
that
great
was
cases.
very informative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it actually brings us into our news, but it's going to give us a little bit of interesting color for the news because as you just came off, news and predictions. Let's
There we go.
Let's get that drop.
News, guys. So,
Wait, hold on.
oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, because you just said, Kim Kardashian got that pardon for Alice Marie Johnson. Of course, she got it from Donald Trump.
Yeah, right. The
Of course.
irony of that.
So here's some, and now he's touting his criminal justice reform, and so we got a little news to talk on that.
thank you for that segue.
Nice segue, right?
Nice little segue. He's like, wait a minute. All right, yes, no, news, guys. So, your president, Donald Trump.
You ain't talking to me.
So your
He ain't my
president, Donald
president.
Trump, back when this case was going on, he took a full-page ad, which he spent $85,000 on in New York's most popular paper, calling for the death penalty for the boys known as the Central Park Five, which is the boys we are talking about. So the ad is right there. He says basically, bring back the death penalty, bring back our police, and he has signed it at the bottom. So that is actually from Donald Trump himself.
What is he saying these
He
days?
said, so in that
In light
he
of
said,
this.
in that ad, he said, I want to hate these murderers, and I always will. I am not looking to psychoanalyze or understand them. I am looking to punish them. I no longer want to understand their anger. I want them to understand our anger. I want them to be afraid. That's quoted from Donald Trump.
It speaks volumes. What we just said. You stand on your one side. You dig your heels in. He said it out of his verbatim. I don't want to understand them. I don't want to break them down. I don't care. They just need to understand how we feel. Yeah. It's all about us and what we're suffering.
He's always been good at seeing an opportunity in the public and using that to kind of light a powder keg.
Yeah, and the fact that he's a pathological what's it called liar, yes. What's it called when you are all about yourself? Thank you. Well, he's the biggest narcissist alive, so of course it's all about him and what he sees should be the right way to do things.
And, just recently, 2 days ago, he had tweeted some things.
I was about to ask you, right, what did he
days
say in
ago.
reference to this?
So he said, anyone associated with the 1994 crime bill will not have a chance of being elected. In particular, African Americans will not be able to vote for you. I, on the other hand, was responsible for the criminal justice reform, which had tremendous support and helped fix the bad 1994 bill. He also tweeted that super predator was the term associated with the 1994 crime bill that Sleepy Joe Biden basically, he called him Sleepy.
Of course he did.
Sleepy Joe Biden was so heavily involved in passing. That was a dark period in American history. But has Sleepy Joe apologized? No.
He always takes issue with everybody but himself. Why are we? I don't.
The irony. Well, just the irony of touting criminal justice reform when you took out an ad trying to kill these children.
But he'll never speak to that. He'll never make amends. He'll never say sorry. Oh, it's so frustrating. He is such a weird human being.
Teenagers. And just the fact that what he said, I'm not looking to understand them.
Right.
Or psychoanalyze them.
I just want them to understand us. And
me.
And
that's the issue, with I would say police enforcement. They in these communities, you going and trying to police communities you know nothing about.
Exactly.
You don't try to get to know the people in the community. You don't try to understand them. All you see is what doesn't look right to you. And you feel like, oh, this is wrong. Let me go interrupt this. But they're not doing nothing wrong. And I'm tired of black people feeling like they have to police themselves around our white counterparts.
It is really sad, but that's the society we live in.
Don't be too loud. Sit down.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't run around. You gotta why?
We can't speak loudly. We can't have hot sauce in our bags. That's just too much.
No, you
can't be swagged out.
You
right.
go to church and pray. You might get shot up
there.
there.
Father God.
Unless it's election time and they're trying to get black votes.
Exactly. Then all bets are off.
Oh man. But I do love that this is just bringing up so many great conversations for us. Another great segment that we have that we need is our positive moment segment. So I want us to kind of all go around and say what we took positively from this. I know it's hard, so I gotta reach and dig deep. But were there any moments that you were like, well, that's still a bright moment?
I think my moment was when was definitely seeing the boys bonding. Not so much bonding, but kind of being a support to one another. Like when Tron and Yusef were talking and one of them was feeling very discouraged, like they were going to lose. And Tron saying to him, no, if you say we're going to lose, we are going to lose. Like you need to have in your mind that we're going to win. And I just really love seeing them really support each other in a really, really down moment in their lives.
That's true.
I agree. And that was so humanizing, right? Ava does such an amazing job with this project. And I love the fact that she makes sure that she fleshes out all of the characters and gives us some background in terms of who they are as human beings. So even in the face of life in prison, you're still cracking jokes and trying to uplift the man next to you. I thought that was dope. So for me, the most positive moment probably was, it was false, and I knew it was false when I saw it, but it still made me cling to hope whenever they were able, when he had that aha moment, when the the defense lawyer turned around and was just like, wait, the sock? You know what I mean? It was like, oh, he got it. It's going to be okay. Knowing it's not, but it still made me grasp. So those little pieces of hope that I was able to grasp, I felt good about that in the moment.
Yeah.
My favorite part was when they was out protesting and they said they are not animals. They are not thugs. These are our boys,
That's
our
right,
black
our children.
Boys, and we must protect them. That was a reminder. We do have to protect our black boys
Exactly.
because who else is going to protect them if we don't?
Not the police.
Yeah, that was also my favorite moment.
sorry.
Was no. It was actually a different moment because we did have some moments of the public support, and it was one day I think they got out and there were some signs that said "Protect Black Youth" and "No Justice, No Peace." And I thought what a beautiful moment because I feel like we're doing that now,
But the fact that we have to still do it.
But I feel like we're doing it in such a better way. We have the Twitter, we have these moments that we can put out and immediately be seen and talk to one another. And so it was poignant for me to watch it and be like, man, the movement was just beginning. It feels like it was just to a point where now we can kind of police everyone and say, wait a minute, we know that's wrong, whether it's that little small state or that small state. You tweeted what happened here, we got this video here.
And the body cams,
Yeah.
that's a little
Everything.
better. Yeah, all the culmination of those things make for a better situation.
Yeah.
But we still
But
have
it's
so
still-
long to go.
Oh,
We
of
got
course.
so far to
Of
go.
course. And what's
And that's
frustrating-
that's what really scares me when white folks are just like, what do you mean? We had a black president. This is amazing. Life is great. Like, I'm just always amazed at white people that feel like racism is quote unquote over,
So
that we shouldn't be
Or
offended
just
and anything
racist
goes
people
in.
in general.
Wait.
Yeah,
Some
pretty
people
much.
that's not, but everybody's not racist.
No,
but
of
some
course
people, everybody's not. They're not racist, but they say comments that's just like, did you think about what you just said before you said
But that
found
is
it
racist. It's just not blatant.
So you found it confusing when Donald Trump in 1989 or 1990 said he would rather be a well-educated black?
First of
that
all,
was one of the most. I didn't know he had said that.
Yeah.
That was really jarring. I
He's
was
a
like,
piece of work. I mean, come on. You know we could talk forever about that
Jeez.
man.
And real quick. So one of the quotes that they said in the show, one of the mothers, she said, "Can they do that?" And that just stuck with me because they can't do that. But it's like,
But they do.
But they do, and you can't say anything. You can't do anything about it. So
and
it's
we
like,
and we don't know what they can do at times.
Yeah.
So it's like unless we are educated ourselves, and
Right.
really
We don't know what they're capable of.
So the fact that you asked that, when you ask that question, they've already done it, right? Can they do that? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. They've already done it, and now
Yeah.
you have to deal with the repercussions of it. And so. It's 1989.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching that, and I'm like, how?
even with the judge, they didn't even do the proper procedure with assigning the judge.
Yes, and
Exactly. There was no.
They didn't
no
spin it.
Spin
They just
nothing.
handed it to him. So again, that just goes to feelings of helplessness.
Yes.
What do you do?
And the fact that with all of this, 1989 really isn't that long ago. Like, that was only a few years before.
29 years?
Yeah. Before I was born. So it's like, wow. Like, I imagine it's like in the 50s and the 60s, but 89, friends of mine were just being born that year. Like, what?
But you would think, for me, what's remarkable is that it feels like nothing's changed, but for the fact that we know about this a little bit quicker.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like we would have, more people would have been out there at the courthouse steps, but it almost felt like I could have been watching this, yesterday, exactly. And so that was really troubling. But we got a few seconds for predictions. Let's just go around. Let's do them real quick, and then we'll rock out of here and get into episode 3.
TV prediction.
AfterBuzz
Go.
TV production.
My predictions is I just want to see them get vindicated.
Oh, you mean the very
I'm talking about the end. Yeah, sorry. This show is so heavy and emotional. I just can't take it. Like my
I was just thinking the same thing.
I just want to see them get off.
Right, I'm ready to get to the fourth show. I wish we didn't even have to watch the third one because it's going to be more angst and more emotional, like angst and
Nice.
just so damn heavy. So yeah, I wish we could just fast forward to the fourth show where we see that they're actually exonerated and everybody is clapping for the fact that they're home and. Yeah, that they didn't have to. I was about to say didn't have to go through turmoil. Obviously they did, but you know what I mean. I want to see the happy part.
Yeah.
You know, aside from it just being, you know, a good history lesson and something to really reflect on, my favorite thing about this whole series has just been the art of the storytelling that Ava has been using with her directing. Like, my favorite part so far has been the very end with the last few shots of them hearing the guilty verdict and showing their tears, and then showing him playing the trumpet with the
in the middle of the
handcuff.
street.
I mean, just beautiful imagery and cinematography. So my prediction is that we're just going to continue to see that beautiful art portrayed, turning something that is so negative into something that can be portrayed in a beautiful way.
Yeah, what was crazy about that image is I wanted to cry when I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cry during the guilty verdict, but when I saw him, something about him playing that trumpet in the middle of the street. Like,
Because you know it was his
With the
dream.
handcuff on his arm.
A dream deferred. His youth has been snatched from him.
Yeah.
It's no longer. He'll never
He will
regain
never
that.
be the same.
Never be the same.
so you can see that image and it says so much. But,
And I know they got a settlement, but you know, it's no amount of money that can make up for 25 years
Right.
in jail, especially when you were
That's
a
your
teenager.
entire life. You snatched their entire lives from them. They'll never. Well, I shouldn't say they'll never marry, but you know, I mean, I'm just thinking like being older. Their prime has been taken from them.
It's crazy. I'm thinking about wanting to see them free, but I'm also thinking that moment is going to be sad because they're going to be different actors, they're going to be so much older.
Right.
You're going to be like, you're going to see that their life has been taken. But wow, it's heavy. Let's take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got some more
Self-care.
episodes to go. I tell you guys, it's a tough one.
Ooh, yes, but we'll make it through.
We will make it through. I want to thank you guys for joining us. My name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
Guys, I'm AJ. Follow me on Instagram at Crimson Pearl and check out my YouTube channel, AJ Talks.
My name is Kittie Kaboom. You can find me on IG at Kittie Kaboom and on Facebook at Kittie Kali and on Twitter at Kittie Meow.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at I am Lexi Fierce.
See you guys, episode 3.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.